Welcome back. President-elect Trump demanding that all hostages held by Hamas be released before his inauguration on January 20th. Trump posted on Truth Social, if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office of President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East. The Israeli Defense Forces confirming American-Israeli hostage Omer Nutra was killed in battle on October 7th. His body has been held hostage in Gaza. Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Richard McCormick, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Armed Services Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. He's also the Republican Study Committee and the GOP Doctors Caucus. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. Give us your reaction now that we know this Israeli American was in fact killed and is dead, his body held hostage by the Hamas terrorists, and now Trump is reacting. Your reaction?
I've been saying this for a long time. When you exude weakness, your enemies will flourish. And this is exactly what's happened. The Biden administration has been the worst foreign policy I've ever seen in the history of the United States. I used to teach this stuff, evolutionary warfare, and I can't stand what I've seen. It's great to have President Trump coming in and actually not just talking softly and carrying a big stick, but actually flexing on something that we've always had in recent history, which is the most lethal military organization in the world. And people should fear us when they do wrong. And they have done us wrong, and they haven't done anything to right this incredible injustice. I'm glad that we're going to have a president who's going to stand up for what's right and get something done for a change.
Yeah, I mean, he's tough, and he's saying so. I'm wondering what the reaction on the other side will be. Do you expect we could actually see a resolution? I mean, do you have any indication that the hostages will be released?
I think they will. As a matter of fact, I think people realize that this is the guy who dropped the mother of all bombs. When he says something, he means it. People should be fearful when you do wrong. That's what the military is for. I don't think the Middle East folks that we've dealt with, whether it be in Afghanistan, Iraq, other places, they understand one thing. They understand strength. And when you exude strength, your enemies will comply. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, what is the budget for the Pentagon? I mean, DOJ co-leaders Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are set to meet with GOP lawmakers this week. Elon is proposing to cut the Pentagon's $824 billion budget after it failed its seventh audit in a row. Elon Musk posted this on X. The government needs to stop wasting your hard-earned money. On the campaign trail, Musk touted the need for DOJ, saying, quote, the interest, just the interest that we owe on our national debt is higher than the defense budget. Over $1 trillion and growing is where this is going. The interest. The country is going to go bankrupt. That's why we need the Department of Government Efficiency, DOJ, on a brass plaque on a desk, Congressman. Nice tweet from Elon Musk. But what do you make of that? The fact that the interest alone is rivaling the amount of money we spend on defense. Is that the budget, 824?
Well, that's exactly what we've all been talking about. Well, at least the Republicans anyways. The problem with the Democrats is they've never run out of things that they can give away for free, quote unquote. When you talk about $8 trillion in debt payment just on interest alone every year, we can't just talk about the military, though. And the military can do some things better. We can save some money just in the way of contract. We can be careful that we don't decrease our abilities because China is right on our heels. However, if you talk about 75% of the budget, 75% is non-discretionary. We're going to have some hard decisions. We got to bring the Democrats in and talk about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. There's hundreds of billions of dollars to be saved, and we know how to do it. We just have to have the stomach to actually take those challenges on. But we can't just talk about our discretionary budget. That's less than 25% of our budget. We have to have some real hard discussions.
Well, we talk about this all the time. It seems like we're constantly talking about where to cut and the fact that the fight over defense. Do you believe that the defense budget should be cut?
I'm not a big fan of that. I think we could do things a lot better. But when you talk about what's happening in Taiwan, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening with Israel, what's happening in Ukraine, this is an unstable place, an unstable time. We have to be very careful. We have to have a real conversation. When you talk about cutting the budget, I'm all about that. And quite frankly, we need to. But we often argue about the 10% of the leftover budget that's left over when we talk about the 75% of the non-discretionary and the 15% with the military and then 10% of everything else. We haven't had the right discussions at all. Quite frankly, we have a 30% deficit spend, actually over 30% deficit spending per year. If you cut the entire military, that's only 15%. We have to have a realistic conversation about where we're going to make some real changes, free the economy, grow it faster than the inflation, actually produce more tax revenue by doing that. But we have to have some real hard discussions about the 75% of the budget we never talk about.
Yeah, well, I mean, Todd Pyro, even though our adversaries are on the march, you've got obviously China every day trying to undermine America. You've got Russia, same thing, North Korea, Iran. You still have to question whether or not the $824 billion budget, the defense budget, should be cut, given the fact they keep failing these audits.
Yeah, and no, I get that. And we need accountability. And we need to talk about contracting. We need to talk about consistency. We need to talk about the future technologies, drones and other things like that. We can never leave out the Marines because we still have to take ground. But really, like I said, I get the whole military budget and how to be accountable. But if you cut the entire military budget, you're still over 15% in the hole. We have to have a lot of discussions, not just about the military.
Let me bring in Todd Pyro. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Congressman, I understand what you're saying. I just view the plight of the American soldier as something where, why do we have these individuals need food stamps if we have an $800+ billion budget? And I understand that their explanation's always given. It just seems very incongruous to me to have these federal contractors that make money because they can't budget, combined with the fact that the Pentagon itself has these overruns and can't account for money, while our brave men and women are suffering. You know, they're the ones that are signing up to fight and die for our country. If there's going to be an inflated budget, those individuals that are volunteering for that should be the ones that are getting the money. And I understand that that's not necessarily how it works, but I do agree with Maria in the sense that there is an ability to cut. And if there's not, let's make sure that the people doing the fighting are getting the money. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and let me just jump in there and mention COVID and all the spending that happened on after COVID, Congressman. I mean, now we're getting these new details from the House Select Committee on the coronavirus pandemic, releasing a report of more than 500 pages, which detailed the review of the federal pandemic response, which included trillions of dollars in spending. It included the virus most likely originated from the lab in Wuhan, China, and that it could not have been found in nature, something we all knew for months now. The report also finding social distancing and masks were not backed by scientific data, and that the pandemic response caused unemployment to skyrocket, while American kids lost, quote, decades worth of academic progress. Look at what happened as a result of COVID, and was there ever any response to the cover-up of COVID from communist China? No. So again, it brings us back to the defense budget. It brings us back to the response to our adversaries, which has been nothing, a lack of response, no deterrence. Does this change materially when Trump comes in?
I sure hope it does. This is what the DOGE is all about. Matter of fact, when I was on the COVID Select Committee, and we just had the committee hearings 2 weeks ago, and we were talking to disaster relief about where their money went. The fact that they're still spending money on COVID last year, billions and billions of dollars, and that's why they run out of money, because they're spending on the wrong thing. I literally questioned the head of FEMA, why? Why are you still spending on COVID this far into it? It has been a money suck since the beginning. It hasn't been about COVID. It's been about spending in the wrong areas. That's what the DOGE is supposed to be about. It's certainly, like I said, not just about the military. You could cut half the military. That's 7% of your budget. 7%. We're 30% plus over. We have a lot of talking to do. We have a lot of work to do. We're only going to have 2 years guaranteed to get this done. So we have a lot of work to do.
Well, I mean, let's add on to the list all of that forgiveness of student loan debt. All right, how much did that cost? That President Biden was pushing it, it's still pushing it, even as the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. So I know there's a lot of areas to cut. Congressman, we're going to be watching your work. Thanks very much.
Always appreciate you, Maria. Have a great day. Semper Fi.
And to you, Richard McCormick.